Last message we had an introduction to the book of Exodus, we elay Shemot. What does we elay Shemot mean? We elay Shemot. And these names. Now the Hebrew Bible in the Old Testament, the first few verses in the Bible, they named the book after those verses. It starts out, and these names, we elay Shemot. That's the first words in the Hebrew book of Exodus. Now, Exodus is from what language?
Greek.
Greek. All right. Exodos. We elay Shemot. We and elay these Shemot names. And then the Greek Septuagint is the Bible that Jesus was using. He would quote from the Hebrew Bible now and then and correct the Exodus, the Greek translation. And let's go back just a little while. But X, it comes from Ek and Hodos. That's the Greek. Go back now to about 250 to 270 BC. The Jewish people had been taken off into Babylonian captivity. Alexander the Great had pretty much conquered the whole known world over there. And he allowed city-states under his empire. They were called ecclesias. And the ecclesias, these city-states, would democratically elect people among them that would answer to the big republic, to the big empire. And they would collect taxes, whatever, but they were elected, this ecclesia, and Jesus used that ecclesia term for his church. The term for church in Greek is ecclesia, one's called out. And in the empire, every little city-state had an ecclesia. And so the Jews had pretty much forgot their language, even though they went to the rituals, they would say it in Hebrew, but the kids would sit around giggling because they didn't know the language. The common language in the time of Jesus was Koine Greek. Koine means common, the common language. The common language of all of them was the Greek language. And so from about 250 to 70 BC, all the way to about 313 or 350, 400 AD, the Greek language was a language of the world. Okay? And so they took, supposedly, the Septuagint was translated by about 72 Hebrew Greek scholars. And they put them in different cells and they translated the Old Testament, and the story was that they came out with all the same translations, which really is not true. No translation is really an inspired translation. It's a translation. The English translation of the Bible is a translation of the Bible. The Bible was written in Hebrew and in Greek and Hebrew Old Testament, Greek New Testament. There were some Chaldee, Persian chapters in the Old Testament, in the book of Daniel and several other places, but most of it was written in Hebrew. They translated it into Greek, like I said, in about 250 to 270 AD, and that's the Bible that they were using. It was as common as King James in the world for 100 years or so. So we have the Hebrew Bible today, and I believe it is probably just about as accurate as if when the signers of it, the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible were written by who? First 5 books of the Hebrew Bible. Moses, Moshe, okay? They were written by Moses. And the second book in the New Testament, or in the Old Testament, is what we're studying here, the book of Exodus. And Exodus, the real name of the book is We elay Shemot and these names. But as they used the book of Genesis among the Hebrew people, this was their alma mater. The book of Exodus, they base their whole world upon the book of Exodus because that's when God called them out of Egypt. They were slaves in Egypt. They went down as princes and basically of the upper echelon ruling class when they went down there, because Joseph was in Egypt, and then all of a sudden Joseph dies. And I said this before, and I want to say it a little bit more. The book of Jasher, Sofer HaYasher, that's what it says in Hebrew. The scribe, the historian Jasher. The book of Jasher is quoted in Joshua 10 and 13, 2 Samuel 1:18, and 2 Timothy 3 and 8. But it's quoted in more places than that in the Bible. It's just directly quoted in those places. The book of Jasher is a history book. And the book of Jasher tells us all about some of the early civilizations and the people. The Bible, our Bible leaves a lot of the women's names out, doesn't it? Doesn't it leave them out?
Yeah.
The book of Jasher tells you who they were. The book of Jasher tells you how old they were and things when they got married. And one of the outstanding things, you know, Sarah was 90 years old when she had a child, wasn't she? How old was Moses' mother when she got married?
128.
126 years old. And she was married to her nephew, which was much younger than she was. And we'll get to that. This is a miraculous birth. She had 3 children. Didn't she? Miriam, she had Aaron, and she had Moses. So we're going to look at this, but we can study from, and we will read from the book of Jasher to fill in the pages here in between. It's a pretty neat book. When the sons of Jacob went down into Egypt, they were powerful warriors. They had killed 100,000 men in the land of Canaan. Now, 2 boys had caused the problem with the Canaanites. They killed Simeon, and Levi killed all of the men in the city of Shechem, didn't they? After they had become converts, they were circumcised. After they were sore the 3rd day, they went in and killed them all. And they stole everything they had. They took all the slaves, they took all the cattle, everything else, whatever they left in the land, they crippled it. All of the oxen that they didn't take, they cut their hamstrings so they couldn't pull or work or anything. You couldn't do anything with them. They were useless. Which was vicious. And Jacob hated it. He hated what those boys did. He cursed them from his deathbed. Now, he said, you won't have any inheritance. Levi didn't have any inheritance in the land. Levi, the family of Levi, basically, are the priests, aren't they? But they don't have an inheritance in the land. They have nothing. That nothing reminds me of myself. All they did was get their living. They didn't have an allotment in the land at all to give down to their children. Now let's go and read some of this now. The Greek translation of it means the way out, or the road out. It's like hantayo. Hebrew, the word hantayo means the way out. They'd say hantayo when they got ready to go. Lakota people with the Sioux. Our people would say, let's go on, and they'd travel and go out from one camp to the other. We'elei Shemot, that's exactly how it starts off. We'elei Shemot, and these names are the sons of Israel. And Israel means what? Yisrael. What does that mean?
On the other side of the river?
No. Israel means the man who wrestled with God.
Oh.
The man who wrestled with God. Remember Jacob at the brook Jacob? The Lord himself, Jesus in his pre-incarnate form, came and approached Jacob, and he grabbed a hold of him, and he would not turn loose of pre-incarnate Christ. He said, I won't turn loose of you until you bless me. And what happened? What did God do to Jacob right there? Remember what he did to him? He crippled him. He crippled him in his hips. He touched his hip and it came out of joint. And so he limped. It said he limped on both sides from there on. And here he was going to go meet his brother, his horrible brother, Esau. And Jacob was a stronger man, but now he's crippled. He's going to have to totally depend upon God to take care of him, isn't he? Totally depend upon God to take care of him. And these are the names of sons of Israel. The ones having come into Egypt. Egypt is Mitzrayim. Egyptos, from the Greek translation, we get our name Egypt from the Greek translation. The Hebrew is Mitzrayim. And what does Mitzrayim or Egypt mean?
The land of the red mud.
The land of red mud and canal banks because it was an irrigated country. And then Jacob. Jacob means to follow the heel. Each man according to his household, it says. They came into the land. Reuben. Remember what Reuben means? The name Reuben? That was his first son. Reuben means see a son. Leah said, see, I got you a son. Remember, she was unloved. Jacob wanted to marry Rachel. And he ended up having 4 wives that he didn't want. He only wanted one. And these women were fighting over him all the time. And the one that he loved, God shut up her womb so she couldn't get pregnant. And she got mad at him and said, it's your fault. He said, I've been with you more than anybody else. Not my fault. You know. And he got mad at her. Reuben and Simeon. Simeon means, see, God has heard me again. Again, Leah had another son called Simeon and say, God has heard me, see? You know, God's on my side, not her side. And Levi. And Levi was another of her sons. And what does Levi mean? She said, I have had another son, Levi, and now he will be joined, his heart will be joined to mine. She still felt unloved. And then Judah. Judah means praise Jehovah. And then, really, all of these sons now, when we come up to the tabernacle later on, we're going to see that there's 4 flags around Israel. And the 4 flags represent the 4 Gospels that will be written in the New Testament time. That's, you know, nothing happens in the Bible just by accident. It's there. And Issachar, now, again, the women are fighting over this man. And so the other one of them found an aphrodisiac, and she said, I'll give you that aphrodisiac, so he'll be with you, but you got to let him be with me tonight. And so he went and Issachar means hired wages. I hired my lover, and I have, by my wages, I have this child, Issachar. And then Zebulun, it means my husband will want to dwell with me. Every name of these child was an insult to the other woman. They were fighting. And then Benjamin. Now, Benjamin's first name was in my grief. But Jacob called him son of the right hand. These are all the sons of Jacob. Now, a lot of this stuff you're not going to get from the Bible. So I'm giving this to you so you'll know every one of the patriarchs under Jacob, every one, Jacob's sons, Judah, whatever, all of them had coffins, and they were all embalmed in Egypt when they died. When they went into Egypt, as long as those boys were alive, the Egyptians were afraid of them because this was a warrior tribe that went out and fought all of Pharaoh's wars. And those boys were horrible. They were powerful men. One man, one of Jacob's sons could kill 1,000 men. The whole world at that time was afraid of these boys. But when they died, Zebulun died when he was 114 years old. Simeon died when he was 120 years old. Reuben died when he was 125 years old. Dan died when he was 120 years old. These are pretty powerful, long-lived children, aren't they? Issachar died when he was 122 years old. Asher died when he was 123 years old. Gad died when he was 125 years old. And Judah died when he was 129 years old. Naphtali died when he was 132 years old. And Levi died when he was 137 years old. Egypt feared these warriors. But after Joseph died and after these boys died, then they began, another group of people came in to rule Egypt. Another group of kings conquered and came in after these boys. And these people knew that these boys had been warriors, but they're all dead. So I'm not afraid of them. The sons of them are not as strong as these men were. These were God-endowed men with great powers. Egypt, the rulers, what we call the Hyksos kings, were related to Abraham's children. Now another group comes in that does not know them, nor do they know about the promises of God through Joseph. The name Dan, now what does Dan mean? A judge, doesn't it? Means judge. Or what else? Snake. Snake.
Judge and a snake. It's a good match.
And then Naphtali, it means my wrestling. I'm wrestling with my husband. I'm wrestling with my husband for your affection. Naphtali. Gad means fortune. I am fortunate. God has looked upon me and has made me fortunate. And then it says in verse number 5, and became all the souls. Waihi kal nefesh yatsi. And then became all of the souls from the loins, from Yarek is what loins means there, from Yaakov, from Jacob, 70 souls. He had 70. Now remember, there's more people down in Egypt than these 70 that went with Jacob, because what happened? Jacob's sons go into the city of Shechem, they steal all the women there. There's a lot of concubines, all these children, they have made slaves out of them. They've got all this cattle and everything, and they all come into the land of Egypt. It names the direct descendants of Jacob, but it doesn't tell you about all the others that went into the land. Jacob's sons went into the land of Egypt as a powerful army. Joseph was the commander general of all the army. He was like Dwight Eisenhower. In World War II, they should have made Patton the major general, the one. They ended up getting rid of him. They lost so many men because of bad decisions that that wouldn't have been made by Patton. He'd sit back, but he slapped soldiers. He did all kinds of wild things. He said, just give my men, we'll go in there and we'll drive all the way back. We'll drive Germany all the way back to Berlin. Don't say that. Don't say that. They tell him, don't say that, shut up. He would have saved a lot of men's lives if they'd have put him over all of it. But see, Joseph was like a Patton in times of old. Without Patton, they would not have won World War II. 70 souls. Nephesh. What does nephesh mean? It means lives. The nephesh is basically the most important part of you. Did you know that? Your body, your soul, and spirit. Your spirit is what makes you live. Your body is what gives you form, but your nephesh is where you live. That's your mind. That's all your memory. That's who you really are, your nephesh. And Joseph. The name of Joseph, remember what that means? That means unstoppable. That means to increase. That means to advance. That means to conquer. That's what Joseph means. And these are the 70 souls that went down in Egypt to Mitzrayim. Now the book of Jasher from chapter 59, 1 through 18, lists all of Jacob's sons and his grandsons also, and daughters. Jacob had more daughters. We know of one daughter that Jacob had, and what was her name? Dinah. But it doesn't name the others, but he had more daughters also. It doesn't even tell you when they're born. It doesn't say much about Dinah when she was born. It just names her because that was a problem, because Shechem wanted to marry her, and all of the city of Shechem and the king of Shechem all converted to Judaism, basically, and they all got killed. 1 and 6. And he died and stayed dead, Joseph. He died and stayed dead. Now, back in those days, when a person died, they took a mirror and put it up in front of their mouth. And if there wasn't any fog on that mirror, they said, well, he's breathed his last. Now, if you didn't embalm somebody, they buried people that were alive in graves. Did you know that? There have been many examples where people tried to woke up in the grave and tried to claw themselves out of a coffin. Some people were so afraid of being buried alive that they put a window in their coffin and put a tube going all the way up where you could look down in the coffin and see the guy's face to see if he woke up and saying, "Help me, help me." One guy even had a telephone button in his coffin.
Oh boy.
I just said that because it says here, Wayimath. Wayimath. Wayimath means a third person masculine, singular, kal, wow, consecutive, imperfect. That's the Hebrew. And it means he died and stayed dead. He's dead. It's done and it's over with. And they embalmed Joseph, and they embalmed every one of his brothers when they died. They were heroes of old, so to speak. And all his brethren, all his brothers, he had, and all of his generation that had come down there. Joseph had ruled Egypt from the time he was 30 years old till he was 110. That's 80 years that he ruled Egypt. 80 years he was a master general of Egypt. 80 years. Ahishkos, Pharaoh, had appointed Joseph ruler of Egypt and the general of all the armies. They were ethnically related to Jacob and Joseph. They were foreign rulers in Egypt from 1637 BC to 529 BC, and were Semitic in origin. About that same time, they were driven out of Egypt. And the sons of Israel, they had kept on being fruitful. That's what it says. They had kept on being fruitful. And they swarmed. Have you ever seen a swarm of flies? A swarm of these. We got some bad birds in this valley now. They're called English sparrows, starlings. And they fly in swarms and they eat everything. Wherever they land, they eat everything. It says here that they swarmed the land of Egypt. Third person masculine plural, kal, wow, consecutive, imperfect. They kept on swarming in the land. They just kept on multiplying, and they become great. And there's over between 1 and 3 million Jews, Hebrews, in the land of Egypt now. Now, did you watch the movie, The Exodus, and with Cecil B. DeMille and all of that with Moses and everything else? Well, that's not exactly the way it happened, but you can get an idea. One thing about the tribe of Levi, the tribe of Levi were never brickmakers and slaves like that. They were goldsmiths and silversmiths. And that's going to show up later. Even all the way down through history they were. And the sons of Israel, they were fruitful and they kept on swarming and they kept on multiplying and they kept on becoming mighty. Exceedingly, Behemoth. Exceedingly mild. Exceedingly, it says. And they filled, it literally says here, and she filled the land she was filled with, and all the land with them. All the land of Egypt was filled with Hebrews. They were out multiplying. In America today, the Anglo-Saxon residents of the land are producing very little children. Did you know that? The original, what we might call refugees that came to America from Ireland to England, from Scotland, all through there, Sweden, wherever, in the beginning they had a lot of children. And a lot of things about, and still the Irish have a lot of children today because they don't practice birth control. They believe they're going to have a lot of children and all this kind of stuff. And it is the Catholic Church. They're Irish Catholics, okay? They have a lot of kids. Well, the people come up from Mexico. People are coming in from all over the world. And the Muslim inhabitants of America are just literally just filling the land. A Muslim here will have one legal wife, but he might have 3 or 4 wives, other living in the house, and they have these great big 10, 15, 20 bedroom homes. And they're building empires, and they're just out populating the people of our land. Now, American Indian people, when they put us on reservations and everything, a lot of the women, if they had a child, they would neuter the child. I mean the mother. She couldn't have any more children. That happened to a lot of my family. They would basically do a hysterectomy on them, tie their tubes or something before they couldn't have any more children. The original inhabitants of the land and the refugees that came here from Europe are going downhill. The voting structure of the people are going downhill, and the people coming in from foreign lands, if they become citizens, they have more voting power than the citizens of America had originally, okay? That's why Biden and his mischief workers are letting all the borders open, all these people come in, and then they want to give them voting rights without being citizens. So they can keep those people in power. And here is what was happening in Egypt so many years ago. This isn't the first time we had this rodeo, people. This isn't the first rodeo. Study history. You either study history or you're bound to repeat history, aren't you? All right. Verse number 8. And arose while you gone. And he arose a new king, Melech Hadash, al Mitzrayim. A new king, Melech Hadash, that word means new, upon the land of Egypt, who did not know Joseph. He was not related to Joseph. Now, Jasher 65, 1 through 28 tells us about all of this. And let's see how many minutes we got on this recording. We might cut this one off. Yeah, we've got enough on this one. We'll go back to the book of Jasher and we'll tell you the rest of the story, as Hal LaFoon used to. Remember Hal LaFoon? The rest of the story. There's a lot here in this book, and it is extremely fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
It applies to us today, does it not? Yeah, we're really having the same problems that they were having back then. Our Father, we send this message out to honor and glorify you, and to wake people up to the plans that you had so many thousands of years ago, and they're still implemented in the world today. Help us to learn from their mistakes, and help it not be our mistakes. And Father, please use it to touch people's lives all over the world. Please forgive me where I fail you. In Jesus' name I pray.